to that in this format, do you think, of coming off in a prosecutorial way?
Absolutely. When I've spoken to allies who are close to her, they say her biggest challenge tonight is getting specific, but not too specific. She's got to tell the story of how a Harris administration would differ from a Biden administration. That word we keep using, change. How would she change things right now? Does she acknowledge to some extent that the economy is not where she wants it to be, and really lay out in more detail what she wants to see? Yes, she's going to prosecute the case against Donald Trump on a range of different issues. She'll accuse him of switching his opinion, particularly when it comes to the issue of abortion and reproductive rights. But again, she's got to walk that fine line.
Yeah, but she also has to answer for some changes in her own positions. Of course, she ran for president in 2020. She came across and positioned herself as a much more progressive type of candidate. Now she's really moving to the middle here in a general election.
Crowded primary, right? Back in 2019, 2020, she has moved away from that on issues like, for example, mandated gun buybacks for automatic rifles, something that she no longer supports. Fracking, for example, something that she has changed her position on as well. You look at Medicare for All, a position that she's backed away from. Watch for the former president to try to go after some of these issues. And I'll tell you, to bring it back to the voters, that panel with Kate Snow is super interesting.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Sorry, hi, how's everybody doing? Yes, force of habit. How's everybody doing? My name is Alex Limon. Welcome to my channel. We're going to be watching the presidential debate between Mr. Trump and Kamala Harris.
Guest starring
Don Lester.
One of his good friends.
Best friend, some say. I don't believe those stories, but you can make it whatever you want. But yeah, we're gonna watch it. It's gonna be interesting because he's a bit of a conservative
Trump supporter.
Yeah. And I'm not. So, and we're still friends. We still managed to hang out together.
We make it work.
We make it work. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. What do you expect to see in this debate? Have you seen the other ones? This is your first one?
First debate with Trump and Kamala. I thought this was the first debate entirely with Trump and Kamala.
Well, he had one. It is the first debate.
Oh,
because,
okay.
The last time
she bailed,
with,
and then he bailed, and then
yeah, but before that it was with Biden, right? That's before he dropped out, and he was like, "Surprise! I'm not gonna do it anymore." Yeah. Now Kamala's gonna do it, and then Trump got really mad because they were like, "We just spent so much money on our ass for Biden. Now we have to start over again."
Trump's getting old, but he's still he's still pretty good he's good on his feet. So
we'll
see what he says. We'll see what he says, and I'm interested to see what, as somebody who never listens to Kamala, I'm interested to see what she has to say.
All right, open mind. Look at that. Starting. Oh my God.
We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak.
Who do you think is going to win?
Notes allowed.
Trump.
There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution
no
Center.
Audience?
This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
Oh, no.
And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
She's been in the government
I
for 4
believe
years,
in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums.
People are swinging right because of it.
They're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening.
She's African American and Hispanic. Or no, she's Indian.
Ohio. You look at Aurora.
She was Indian before. Now she's African American.
They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I'd love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Because of COVID,
Donald Trump left us the worst public health
epidemic
in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
He dealt with COVID.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
It wasn't even COVID. It was the lockdown.
What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you on this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it.
I've never
read it. This was a
it.
group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work, and, create jobs, and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences. Like,
can you imagine her as the president?
Run.
Like, what would the world become?
4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
What you say, boss?
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration.
Ooh, that's a good point.
We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country.
You can't argue
I've
inflation
never seen a worse period of time.
Around
People
COVID.
can't go out and buy cereal or
So he's
bacon
got a
or
wrong point
eggs
here.
or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy.
Big Mac index is
And all
what
you have to
matters.
do
So
is
Big
look
Macs
at
are up
the
30%.
The polls say 80 and 85
McDonald's
and even
knows the
90%
economy.
that the Trump economy
Big Macs
was
are up
great,
30%.
that their economy was terrible.
Inflation's
President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having, on the short end of the stick, in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. "Thank you, President Xi!" exclamation point. When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump,
first of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore.
But he said it was the China virus. It was the China virus.
Philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it.
She left doing that.
It will be the end of our country. She likes the jokes too. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, "I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks." But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times.
I'm a Republican, but I'm extremely
why should they trust you?
The reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do exceptions. Very important. but we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years.
Why, though? Why is it
every
torn the country
legal
apart? Abortion?
scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought.
But prosecuting people for going to other states,
voting. It's the vote of the people
where
now.
it's
It's
legal,
not tied up in the
you
federal
make it illegal
government.
to them.
I did a
Then
great
it's not-
service
then
in
it's not
doing
up
it.
to
It
the
took
states, is
courage
it?
to do it. And the Supreme
Well, the
Court had
states,
great courage in
compared to
doing it.
provinces,
And
are
I
extremely
give
independent.
tremendous
So in the
credit to
states,
those
they don't-
six justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Kill a baby?
Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies,
Abortion
and that's not
is
actually
and
a
shall
surprising
always
fact.
be legal, in my opinion.
Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral.
I know I'm against.
And
I've heard
one does
of it.
not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people
Roe v. Wade is
wanted?
good then. I support
Pregnant
Roe v.
women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term.
But see, it's my fault for being ignorant because I've never known any 13-year-olds to get raped. But
when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. He went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court.
So
all these students
he's gone. He's on vacation.
taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because you're running late, J.D. Vance has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond. But I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Sorry. Oh, she's
pro-life? As you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy
you can follow me if you want.
and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans.
You're watching this.
Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state.
I agree with her
to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America,
he knows that.
The majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions
exactly
about her own body. And that is why in every
but
state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask. Will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask me that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v. Wade,
you
could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month, and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
She did not.
And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
But
you will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you,
can she deal with immigration? Can she deal with Russia and Ukraine? Can she deal with Israel and Hamas?
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the board?
First, let me respond to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
The biggest
because
rallies.
People want to take their country back.
Our
country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating.
That's fake.
They're eating the pets
That's
of
fake.
the people that live there. And this is what's
Okay,
happening.
but if they are doing that, that's
country, and it's a shame.
But if they are, that's terrible.
As far as rallies are concerned,
I've never heard about that.
The reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this
I've
is
seen people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing.
How do you know get used for food?
This is the Trump L. This is the Trump L for sure.
The people that went there.
Again,
I mean, if somebody tried to eat my cat,
no evidence of that.
That would be news. That would be videos. There would be TikToks about it. There would be somebody crying and.
Oh yeah, I would take their face.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney.
Somebody see my cat?
If you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump will give you a quick minute to respond.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job, I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13
They just
people
leave billions of dollars of equipment in Afghanistan.
were just killed, viciously and violently
and
killed.
American
And I got
troops.
to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen.
There was people hanging onto the
when
airplane.
somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy
They
like
should have
Esper.
done it
He was
better.
no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because
Trillions
with
of
me,
dollars
they can
of
write
war.
books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in
Still a
history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military. You also say you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
It is much higher.
Thank you to all the viewers. I don't usually live stream, so
millions
this is the first time live streaming, actually.
They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it. Because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down. All over the world, except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof, and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall
in moderation,
violent crime is actually coming
I
down
agree.
in this country. But
Immigration is amazing. It's an amazing, incredible thing.
They
moderation.
didn't include the worst cities. They didn't
and we have
include
not had
the
moderation.
cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so
Have a good
rich,
vibe.
coming from someone who has been prosecuted.
Thank you. I'm speaking my opinion.
National security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page
But a felon,
on this same
according to who?
old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent, and I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal.
You lost
and you saw
all of
that
them.
with the decision that
You
came down
lost
just recently
34
from the
counts.
Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them, but those are cases. It's
You
called
lost all of them.
weaponization.
What are you
Never
talking
happened
about?
in this country.
I want to
They
see
weaponized
Trump
the
probably
Justice
have
Department. Every one of
conservative
those
majority
cases
here.
was involved with the DOJ,
Except
from
I really
Atlanta
disagree
and
with their
Fani
pro-
Willis to the
I really
Attorney
hate that
General of New York and the DA of New
anti-abortion.
York.
I really think that
Every
women
one of
should
those
have
cases,
right.
and then
I
they
don't agree
say,
with that.
"Oh, he's a criminal." They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents
Joe
case.
Biden's out
and what
camping right
happened
now
in my
in fucking the
documents case?
Maldives or
They said, "Oh,
something."
that's the toughest of them all." A complete
Joe Biden's
and
just
total
like
victory. 2
watching
months
this on
ago,
his
it was
phone.
thrown out.
Oh,
It's
cool.
weaponization, and they used
Who's
it. And
Kamala
it's never happened
Harris?
in this country. They used it to try and win an election with their fake
Who's this
cases.
Kamala
President Trump, thank
on
you.
my
A really
screen?
quick response here, Vice
This is
President
Joe
Harris, on this
Biden.
notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme
Malarkey.
and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said
Go Trump.
he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President, thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
Weaponized, please.
We got to
This is the
continue
one
here.
that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a
Gross
bullet to
for
the
Trump.
head
Okay,
because of
I'm pro-Trump,
the things that they
minus
say about me. They talk about
the whole conservative
democracy.
abortion
I'm a
thing.
threat
Women-
to democracy.
Minus the whole
They're the threat
Women should
to
always
democracy
have
with the
their
fake
choice of
Russia,
body.
Russia investigation.
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last
That's
run
the only
for
thing I
president,
disagree
you said
with.
you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government
And he's not
buyback
racist.
programs for assault weapons.
I see
now
racismo.
your campaign
He's not
says you
racist.
don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going
I don't know
to
what that
discuss
means.
every one of the, at least
It
every
says
point
Harris
that you've
trying to
made.
look
But in
white.
particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in
Oh.
Pennsylvania. I made that
very
very
bad
clear in
at Espanol.
2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have
Wrong as a
had the
construct.
largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that
What
we
more do they need to be
cannot
happy?
over-rely on foreign
Women
oil.
deserve all the
As it
rights that
relates
men
to my
do.
values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class
troll or
kid
what? Yeah.
raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager.
You can be pro-Trump
The
and
values I
pro-right
bring to the
without
importance of
being
homeownership, knowing not everybody got handed
some sort of
$400
weird
million
fascist
on a silver
fucking
platter and then filed
frickin'
bankruptcy
sorry,
6
sorry.
times.
I'm sorry for swearing. I
It's a
shouldn't
value
swear.
that I bring to my work to say we are going to work
Yeah.
with the private sector and
this
home
doesn't have to be the
builders
Handmaid's
to
Tale
increase
over here. Yeah.
3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting
Very
women
good
and
live.
children from
I'll
violent
go
crime
good,
is based on a value that
says
is deeply grounded
Letty.
in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done. Protecting seniors from have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president
is
who
very
actually
important.
brings values
That's what Canada doesn't
and a
understand.
perspective
We need
that is
oil
about
and
lifting
nuclear
people
power.
up and not
She's not saying get rid
beating
of it, she's
people
saying stop the violence
down
and we're trying to,
and name-calling.
diversify.
The true
you-
measure
How
of
do
the
you think-
leader
Isn't that what
is
Elon
the
wants?
It's the
leader
stages-
who
Isn't that what
actually
Elon's
understands
best friend
the
Trump's-
strength is not in beating
it's the
people
stages
down,
of the
it's
world.
in
Look, like you
lifting
have
people up.
the Bronze
I
Age,
intend to be that
the Iron
president.
Age, the Steel
President
Age,
Trump, your
Well, first of all, I
the
wasn't
oil
given
age,
400
the nuclear
million dollars. I
age. It
wish I
takes
was.
time.
My father was a Brooklyn
And
builder, Brooklyn,
each
Queens,
age-
and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I
No,
was
but
given
each
a
age
fraction
has its
of that, a
conflicts,
tiny
but we
fraction,
are-
and I
should
built it
be
into many, many
going to
billions
the
of
nuclear
dollars,
age.
many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She
Portland-
gave
She's
all
against
that
the-
stuff up.
she's against the
Very
police. I think
wrongly,
he
very horribly.
I think he
And
missed out.
everybody's
Portland
laughing
turned
at
into
it,
a
okay?
fucking
They're all laughing
frickin'
at it.
sorry, I gotta
She
stop
gave
swearing.
up at
Portland
least
turned into a
12 and
frickin'
probably
shithole,
14 or
pure
15
hole.
different
No, but
policies.
she's
Like
against
she was
defund the
big on
police.
defund the police.
Defund
In
the police is
Minnesota, she
garbage,
went
man.
out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please.
Yeah,
Does that
Kamala,
sound
shut up.
familiar? She went out. She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She
Like a
did things that
WWE
nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left
Kamala just wants a
liberal
bunch of
that would do
illegals
this.
with
She wants to
transvestite
confiscate your
operations
guns,
invading
and she
the
will
United
never
States.
allow fracking in Pennsylvania.
I'm here,
If
some of
she
them are
won the
good,
election,
some of them are
fracking in
kidding.
Pennsylvania will
People are
end on
thanks.
day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before.
Like nobody has ever
when they
done
took
before.
over.
I'm
they
just
got
scared
rid of it,
about
started getting rid of it,
transvestite
and
Venezuelans,
the
to be honest
prices were
with you.
going up the roof.
You're
They
joking.
immediately let these guys go to
Just
where
a
they
joke.
were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the
probably
election,
me.
the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they
Nuclear
need a
is the
whole
future.
desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar
Not
plant?
oil.
By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
Saskatchewan has a lot of
500 acres
uranium, by the
of
way.
desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not
issues.
good things for the
Desert
environment.
soil.
We're out of time.
Desert
Thank
soil.
you.
What else is gonna go
Lindsay,
there?
thank you. We have an election
Oil?
in just 56 days. And
Well,
I
oil
want to talk
also
about the
takes a lot of
peaceful
acres.
transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our
Same fucking
democracy
shit.
and the
Okay,
role
but
of the
oil
president
is,
in
the
a moment
blood
of
of the
crisis. Mr.
Yeah,
President,
you
on
wanna
January
bring it?
6th, you
Yeah.
told your
You're
supporters to
supposed to-
march to
I
the
do
Capitol.
agree.
You said you
You're
would be
supposed to
right
get
there
a
with
year.
them.
As a
The
Republican,
country and
I
the
do
world
agree.
saw what played out in the
Oil is
Capitol
the
that
blood
day,
of the earth. The more you
officers
drain,
coming
the
under
more it
attack.
dies.
Aides in the West Wing say you watched it
Only
unfold
that
on
you donate
television
blood like
off the
twice a
Oval
year or
Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters
Well,
to
I'm
go
not
home.
kidding.
Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered
Specifically what
peacefully and patriotically.
What does that say?
I said during my speech, not later on.
I'm simple?
Peacefully
I am
and
done as simple.
patriotically. And nobody on the other side was
Oh,
killed.
okay.
Ashley Babbitt was shot
no
by
hablo
an
español.
out-of-control police
Rely
officer
on Alejandro.
that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed
He's
to
right.
pour in? She was the border czar.
You see the
remember that.
Venezuelan gangs
She
that
was
took
the
over
border czar.
compounds and-
She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about
She
those
was
people? When
the
are
border
they going to be
control.
prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over
That
the
is
world,
weird, right?
David,
There's, like,
all over the world,
paintings.
and crime rates
Who's
are
your
down all over
companion
the world
something? I
because
don't
of
know.
it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David? When are those people going to be
Alex
prosecuted?
Hoyes.
When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage
No
of the
habla
city of
español?
Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said,
They
you know,
knew
this is going to be a very big rally
They
or
knew
whatever
what
you
he
want to
was
call
doing.
it.
No,
and again,
I mean-
it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a
Nancy
tape of her saying
Pelosi.
she is
She still
fully
exists?
responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security.
He wasn't
Nancy
responsible for
Pelosi
that.
was
No.
responsible. She didn't do her job.
I don't think he was
question was
responsible
about
for
you
that.
as president, not about
No, he
former
was not.
Speaker
All
Pelosi. But I
his
do want Vice
supporters
President
in
Harris
the
to
Capitol
respond here.
breaking windows, that was not him?
No.
I was at the Capitol on
Not
January
him.
6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also
She was in
an
ground
acting
zero.
senator.
She was in one of
I
the
was
towers,
there.
Don. She was in
And
one of
on
the
that
towers.
day,
She was the one wearing the horn
President of
hat,
the
I
United
bet.
States incited a violent mob to attack
She was the one
our
wearing the horn
nation's
hat.
capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died.
Yeah, and some woman got
And
shot in the
understand,
face, by the way.
The former president has been indicted
No,
and
a conservative
impeached
got shot in the face for no reason.
exactly that reason.
Yeah, because she was breaking
But
windows.
this is not an
Break a
isolated
window, get shot in the
situation.
face? How does that seem
Let's
fair?
remember
Isn't
Charlottesville,
that the whole Second Amendment?
where
Private
there was
property,
a mob
becomes
of
an
people
appropriation,
carrying
she's in
tiki
the whole
torches,
mantra for the Republicans?
spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the
No,
time
you should
say?
not, Jenny.
There were fine people on each side.
Well,
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys
no,
and
you shouldn't.
militia,
If it's a retweet, no. If
the
it's a tweet,
president said, the
yes.
former president said, stand back and
They're
stand
not called
by.
tweets anymore.
So
well,
for
she said tweet.
everyone watching
If you
who
tweet it and
remembers
say
what
incite
January
this,
6th was,
Yeah, he did. Well,
I say we don't
If
have
you
to
read-
go back.
You know with the exact words.
Let's
You
not
know
go
what he was
back.
doing.
We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place
nobody deserved to die
in our
that night.
campaign for you to stand
This is all about
for
political
country,
difference. Nobody deserved to die.
stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking
Jen,
the foundations
don't
of our
get too
democracy.
don't get too
'cause you
deep
don't
in the
like
weeds, Jen. Don't
outcome.
worry, it's
And be
all
clear,
surface level here.
On
Don't
that
worry.
point, Donald Trump, the
Nobody deserved to
candidate,
die.
has said
I
in
don't
this
have a
election
Twitter.
there will be a bloodbath.
Oh, what's this?
If this and the outcome of this election is not
What is
to
this?
his
We'll
liking,
What does that
let's
mean?
turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for
Beyond-
the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term
What does that
that
say?
related to energy
Those
because they have
Alex and
destroyed
Don.
our energy business.
So
That
nice
was where
with you
Bloodbath
guys
was.
watching.
Also,
Oh, nice.
on Charlottesville.
Thank you.
That story has
Thank you,
been, as you
Letty.
would say, debunked.
Where's Letty?
Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it.
Oh, thank you.
If they go an extra sentence,
I didn't
they
say you
will
were
see
mad,
it was
Jen. I didn't say you were
perfect.
mad.
It was debunked in almost every newspaper.
This is my first time
but they
live
still
streaming, by
bring
the
it up
way,
just
so
like they
give
bring
me a break.
2025
They're
up.
debating, not
they
us.
bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol.
Jenny seems nice.
Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through
this is
on the southern border? How come she's
said
not
I
doing
met her?
anything? And I'll tell you what I would
don't
do,
remember
and I
meeting
would be very proud to do it.
sorry.
I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go
Kelowna?
down to Washington,
Oh,
D.C.
must have been
during
so
this
long
debate
ago.
because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the
MAGA.
border because they have the right to do it. They don't need
Thanks,
bills.
Jenny.
They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Hey, if
you
I can
say,
get 50
come on
followers
down to the
on
office, let's
YouTube,
sign a bill. If
I
he,
can
if
start
he
live
signs a
streaming.
bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to
Alex,
the border
cara enamorada
patrol,
y
who are
Dion, qué lindo
phenomenal.
estar con
If they
ustedes,
do
señal
that,
de
the border
aprobación
is
con la
closed.
mano.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people,
I wanna-
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in.
share
Mr.
my
President, for
channel
3.5
if I
years
get 50
after you lost the
followers, I can
2020
live stream
election,
stuff.
you repeatedly
But I'm just, if I
falsely
do live
claimed that
stream,
you
I'm just
won,
gonna be like
many
walking around
times saying you
downtown
won in a
Vancouver.
landslide.
so they're doing a good job.
In the past couple of weeks
Oh,
leading
thanks.
up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a
started
whisker,
a podcast.
that you, quote, didn't quite make it that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that.
Yeah,
We said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said
Yeah, if I
sarcastically.
get 50 followers on
Look,
YouTube, I can start
there's so much proof. All you have to
live
do is
stream
look at
random
it.
stuff,
And they
but my
should have
stuff's
sent
gonna
it
be
back to the legislatures
less
for approval.
political. It'll just be
I got
like,
almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I
me
was told
walking
if I
around
got
downtown,
63,
probably.
which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in,
I'm just going to say this entire thing is streaming off my cell phone right now, which is awesome.
They're in practically, and these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's
where's my
why
link?
they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch
you probably
all of these
banned links
pieces of
or
video. I didn't detect the sarcasm. Lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing.
They said we didn't have
We didn't have
standing.
standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts,
if you don't have a case, you don't have standing. If you don't have evidence for your case, you don't have standing.
Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news, and the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election. That was won by President Biden and yourself.
Yeah, I think that's
But I do want to ask you about something
translation.
that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
You get money from the stickers.
Long-term prison sentences.
I don't know what stickers are.
One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate
I don't know what stickers
us.
are, but
We
he
won't
says
let
yes.
him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about
This
that.
nation needs
And
orange
clearly
skin.
he is having a very difficult
I
time
do put some
processing
tanner on
that.
myself.
But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States.
Imagine her as president.
And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament
Thank you, Jen. You want to dance?
or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because
we should follow the lead of El Salvador.
Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid,
Does
and I don't
anyone
like to use the
agree
word
with El
afraid, but I'm
Salvador?
just quoting him.
Locking up
China
prisoners?
was afraid of him. North
That's what I
Korea
like.
was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way.
Dance.
He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president.
Is it just
but
me,
when
or
this
is there, like,
weak,
a lot
pathetic
of
man
Donald Trump's
that
lower
you
teeth?
saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office.
Cece.
And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her.
I need
he
50
can't
followers
stand her.
before I can live
He
stream,
got
and
14
I'll just
million
live
votes.
stream walking around
they
downtown.
threw him out. She got
speaking my
0
opinion.
votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it because
problem with Trump.
I think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to
An
the
opportunity with
Israel-Hamas
Trump.
war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international
pro-Israel.
humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months
we're
ago.
different
Now
on
an
this opinion
estimated
as well.
40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here.
Palestine is supported
On
by
October
the Palestinian
7,
people deserve freedom.
Hamas,
the Palestinian
a
people are
terrorist
backed
organization,
by Iran, who is
slaughtered
backing
1,200
ISIS
Israelis.
and Hamas.
Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would.
They do.
And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
Hey, Baby Lopez.
Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal, and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel.
I like
But we
surprise.
must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet
One of my best friends is Ukrainian.
Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important
hates
speech.
Russia.
She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers.
But they
She wanted to
speak
go to the
Russian.
sorority
His name is
party.
Alexander
She
Malekith.
hates Israel. If
How
she's president,
Russian can
I
you
believe
get? Like,
that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good
Ukraine
at predictions. I
is
hope I'm
Russia.
wrong about that one. She hates Israel.
Ukraine
At the same
is
time,
Russia.
In her own way,
They are the same country.
She hates the Arab
Chernobyl
population
is in Ukraine.
because the whole
In Russia.
place
It's
is
all
gonna
the
get
same.
blown
Like,
up. Arabs, Jewish people,
I support the
Israel.
I support the
Israel will be
Ukrainian
gone.
people, but I think
It
that
would have
realistically,
never
it
happened.
is
Iran
the
was
part of the
broke
USSR.
under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions
old
they
USSR.
had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28
1991. 1990, you got the same
They are
level.
spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis
thank
and
you,
Yemen.
Azim.
Look at what's going
my
on in the
friend.
Middle East. This would have never
Can you
happened.
not say my
I
full
will get
name in
that
the chat,
settled
please?
and
That would be
fast,
great.
and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins, and I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're
Putin's
weak
like
and incompetent,
Hitler 2.0
and they
in
are.
my opinion.
They're grossly incompetent.
Putin's
and I
like
just
Hitler
asked one
2.0.
question. Why does
He's
Biden
like pretty
go in
far
and
up
kill
there.
the Keystone
He's like the
pipeline
Pepsi.
and approve the
He's
single
like-
biggest deal
Hitler's
that
like
Russia's
Pepsi,
ever
or
made,
no,
Nord Stream 2, the biggest
Putin's like
pipeline
Pepsi.
anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're
Pepsi.
ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Back in a moment. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, we're an hour in. We still have half an hour left on this debate. On this amazing debate. What are you thinking so far, Don? What's your political analysis?
I mean, they both are talking bullshit the entire time. Like, they're not making any progress whatsoever.
Well, I don't think this debate is going to help make any undecided voters decide. I don't think so.
It's less energetic than Oh, I should fix my hair.
That's because they don't let them, interrupt.
Yeah, it's all right. Thank you for everyone watching.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for the super chats. Really appreciate it. What do you think? What do you guys think of the debate? Who do you think is winning? If you can hear anything over our comments, because we're talking to the whole thing, which is what we want anyway. But what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? I don't know. I mean, they both have bad things they can point out. I think Trump has the most, for sure. It's funny how he says, like, oh, I fired them because they were bad. Like, yeah, but you said you were hiring the best people.
But then...
And
Kamala
he only...
was part of the government for the past 4 years, and what did she do?
Well, like I said, the vice president doesn't have lots...
The vice president has no power.
No, really. It's more of a...
Then what
understudy.
Then what would she do now?
Huh?
What would she do differently as president?
Well, she's telling you. She's gonna...
I don't believe
She's gonna do tax cuts.
I don't believe her.
And she's gonna try to get the abortion thing going. Get some seed money. And
There's half an hour left in the debate. They're doing a break.
They're doing a break. They're giving them time to Trump to put his makeup back on. Refresh a little bit.
Someone says they want to see Espanol. You can speak in Spanish, right?
No, that's okay.
I can't speak it, but you can do it.
Dice, bueno, los dos nos son monos entrenados. Quien llegue hará daños, pero la pregunta es quién no hará más daños. Like, they're both trained monkeys.
Yeah, they are.
Both of them are gonna have some like bad things happening when they're president, but we can handle it better, I guess.
El debato tomorrow is resume. No, it's gonna. I think it's resuming tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just taking a quick commercial break. We can see the Dow Jones. Let's see the stock market. Let's see
if anyone loves my Spanish, you can send a heart right now.
You can see that the Nasdaq is up.
If anyone hearts my Spanish speak, they can send a heart. Send a heart. Can you send hearts on this?
Yeah. Do you like this? Do you like les gusta este formato? I kind of want to do my live streams like this, maybe. What do you think? Like going forward?
Well, okay, so let's ask the group. Do you want to see more of me or less of me?
Do you want to see more of Don or less of Don? I guess I could censor the
Don habla poco de español. What does that mean?
You speak a little Spanish. He's been to Mexico. That's why he knows.
I like the format, vertical. Oh, you're doing vertical stream?
Well, it's like the no.
Oh,
it shouldn't be vertical.
Don't know what that means.
He wants more. She wants more done.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, I could put a little music on while we wait.
I'm just gonna say all of this is streaming on my phone.
Yeah, how do you like it? How do you like the streaming? I know you were a little bit concerned about, being on camera. He was like, "Oh, do I look fat? Do I look fat?"
I mean, I look a little fat when I bend over.
You look fat? Yes, Don, you look fat. You look fat. He's such an asshole. No, Don, you don't look fat.
And the camera's a bad angle. It's just like
yeah,
I'm more pretty in real life.
Blame the camera. Blame the camera.
I'm more pretty in real life. You guys together make good team. Oh, thank you.
See you saying that. She doesn't mean it.
Maybe we should.
Just kidding. Yeah, we can do something. I think this is pretty good. Little music while we wait for the debate to come back. Yeah, no. Oh, I think it's already back. Yeah, it's already back. Well, that was quick.
And I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions.
Yeah,
it's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look,
even though my friend's Ukrainian,
we're
it's
in
like
for 250 billion or more. Because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done.
I love my Ukrainian friends, but like,
they're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask.
Because the
Europe,
USSR, I don't know, like
NATO. They paid billions and billions,
I have multiple Ukrainian
friends,
friends, and I think
either you pay up or we're not going to protect
you
anymore.
They are basically
so that's
Russian.
maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But
I don't know.
you take a look at
one
what's
of my
happening.
best friends is Ukrainian.
We're in for 250
Russia,
to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened.
He's right.
And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president?
A Euro nation just agreed to attack Moscow.
Just to clarify
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know.
Trump is right.
Is he our president?
This could lead to World War III.
But we have a president.
Mr. President,
did you know what led to World War I?
Your time is up. Just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
What does finish mean? What does finish mean? How do you finish a war? Somebody has to win.
Give up the Donetsk region to Russia.
Vice President Harris, I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Vladimir Putin doesn't think like we do, even though they're like a white Christian nation.
It's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded.
You never did.
Tried through force
to change
territorial boundaries to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda
I'm too old to be drafted. I would literally
understand why the European allies and our NATO
actually. Like I probably crack them right now.
Thankful
I think I probably can be drafted.
You are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO.
I can't be drafted. I got to vape.
What we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise,
military
Putin
issued
would be
vape?
sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of a favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
I gotta stop swearing in your life.
Thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier. And please,
well, funny story, in World War II, they give them methamphetamine.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow.
And women. I like that.
Please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about.
You know what I would
Nobody
love?
likes to talk about it. But
a
just
world
so
without
they sent her
America
to negotiate
and Russia
peace
and
before this
borders.
war
I would just like to.
3 days later, he went in and he
Why do we have
started the
these?
war.
Why do we have these
Because
conflicts?
everything they said was weak and
Because everyone
stupid.
wants
They said
resources.
the wrong things. That war should
Oil,
have never
resources,
started. She
diamonds,
was the
lithium.
emissary. They sent her in to
It's
negotiate
stupid.
with
It's stupid.
Zelensky and Putin.
I was just
And
born
she
into this
did.
world. I don't
And
agree with
the war
it.
started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate as soon as they left. Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this
I don't have
debate.
a British accent.
You're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow.
That's a Canadian accent.
And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky,
You want some
I met with him
Putin
over
there,
5
do you, bud?
times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should,
Pretty toasty. Yeah,
as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief.
Do we have a democracy?
And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them.
She was definitely naked in the mirror this morning saying this whole speech.
Personal flattery.
And her husband was like,
we've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I wanted to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yes,
he got these
Uzbekistan has a lot of oil reservations.
Thank you.
Azim.
To pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Of course she should. She was the Vice
I will
President.
tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan.
But the way they did it was wrong.
Said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military
$1 billion worth of
active
American
duty
military equipment
in a combat
that they
zone
left.
in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
They left $1 billion
But
of
let's understand how we
useless
got
equipment
to
the
where we
Taliban.
are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said
what does that say?
It was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders.
Yeah, can you imagine if they invited Saddam Hussein or
former president,
Bin Laden to Camp David?
Then they'd be just like Justin Trudeau.
To Camp David, because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers.
Well, I
got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed.
That's what I deal with these people,
We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was We were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind.
Alex,
We wouldn't have left. We wouldn't have left
muy simple.
$85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind.
What did she say?
And just to finish, they blew it.
What did that say?
The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it.
Oh.
The agreement was terminated by us.
I have very bad
because
Espanol.
they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Negotiation.
And by the
Why
way,
would you kill
that's
someone
why
if you can
Russia
negotiate with them?
attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I
Are we still heard?
I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out.
She was Indian previously.
And I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I read she was black.
Are you Indian or black?
I mean, honestly, I think it's just a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Yeah. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this.
They do.
Want someone who understands.
They do deserve better than racism. The world shouldn't be divided by racism.
We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor.
She's just as fucking white as he does, man.
We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time.
Anyone who thinks of the world by race is just like, no.
Can we please just have discourse about
don't think
how
of the
we're
world by
going
race.
to invest in the
Think of the world by-
aspirations
Why
and
bring
the
up the race
ambitions and
of
the
tomorrow?
dreams of the American people?
Yeah, true.
Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President
She's right.
Harris, thank
She's
you.
right.
Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the
Blacker.
most divisive presidency
What does a blacker mean?
in the history of our
Asking
country.
Trump
There's
maybe
never
it's
been
blacker.
anything like it. They're
Blacker.
destroying our country.
Oh, no.
And they come
They're
up
both
with
white, in my
things
opinion.
like what she just said.
I
Going
don't
back
think he's
many,
black.
many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person.
They didn't just plead not guilty. They were coerced for the
40, 50
confession. They were like
ago, because there's
13.
nothing now.
They
I
at
built
least
one of
held
the
them for like
greatest
hours
economies in
until
the
they get a
history of the
confession.
world,
Okay,
and I'm gonna
but
build
look
it
at
again.
statistics,
It's gonna
okay?
be bigger,
Statistics.
better, and
Hold on, we'll
stronger.
get to the thing now.
Statistics
They're
don't lie.
destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy.
that say?
And remember this.
No, he doesn't know.
She is Biden. You know, she's trying to
What?
get away from Biden. I
reality
don't know
show,
the
probably.
gentleman. She says, she is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation
bringing
has
up
made
Biden.
it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you.
Well, she
I
works for
want to
Biden.
respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly.
She has black knees.
Clearly, I am not Joe Biden.
I haven't
am
seen her
certainly
knees.
not
Maybe she
Donald
showed her
Trump.
knees and her feet. Maybe
And what I
I'd be
do
interested.
offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible. One who brings a sense
Show
of
us your feet, Kamala.
optimism about what we
You
can
went all
do
about it,
instead
bro.
of always
tried
disparaging
that campaign
the
strategy?
American people.
Yeah, show us your
I
feet.
believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk
Vote for
about our
Kamala.
plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction.
No, don't give anyone
To
any money.
pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas,
Giving people money
their hard work.
is why
I
we're in
have
the
a
problem we're
plan,
in today.
$6,000.
Don't give people
for
money.
young families for the first year of your child's life.
No.
To help you in that most critical
Because all that
stage
does
of your
is take
child's
tax money
development. I
from
have
people like
a
me
plan.
and give
that
it to
is
somebody
about
else. And I don't agree
allowing
with that.
people to be able to pursue
This is why
what has
I
been
lean right,
fleeting in
is
terms of the
because
American dream
you
by
take money
offering
from middle-class people
help with down
and
payment of
inject it into other people.
$25,000
And
down
I don't
payment
agree with that.
assistance for first-time home buyers.
I don't agree with that.
That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight.
You should not take tax
as
money
opposed to a conversation
from
that is constantly
middle-class
about
people
belittling
working and doing their job
name-calling.
every day
Let's
to
turn
inject
the
into
page
people who are new
and move
immigrants
forward.
or new business starters,
President Trump, we have
lower
to
the
move on.
taxes
President
on
Trump,
middle-class
Let's
people,
turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan
raise
to
the
defund
taxes
the
on
police.
corporations,
She has a
and
plan
fund your shit that
to
way. Like,
confiscate everybody's gun.
President
She
Trump,
has
you
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
Don't
fracking
tax
in
the middle-class
Pennsylvania
people
or anywhere
to pay
else.
for poor
That's
people.
what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to
Lindsey, go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
Somebody
respond
already
to.
I'm sorry,
I
we're
just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now
times.
your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to
where's that
accomplish
plan
that.
you've been
You
talking
now
about
say
the
you're
last
going to
6
keep
years?
Obamacare, quote,
well,
unless
he's
we
wrong
can do
too,
something
because he
much
wants
better.
lower taxes than rich people
Last
too.
month,
So
you said, quote, we're working
they're both
on it.
stupid.
So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare
Don't raise
was
taxes
lousy
on middle-class
healthcare.
people,
Always
pay for
was. It's not very good today.
alternatives.
And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because
Yeah, you've been
Democrats
saying you have a
wouldn't
plan
change it. They
since
wouldn't vote for it.
2016.
They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to
Obamacare is
change it.
fine.
If they would have done that, we would have had a much better
think people
plan than
underestimate the amount of
Obamacare.
people that are
But the
freeloaders.
Democrats came up. They
There's a lot of
wouldn't vote
freeloaders
for
in
it.
this world.
I had a choice to make when I was president.
He's a
Do I
freeloader.
save it and make it as good as
I
it
don't
can
like
be? Never
freeloaders.
gonna
I
be
would
great.
rather.
Trump is a
Or
big
do I
freeloader.
Even in
let it
Canada,
rot?
I support a
And I
two-tier
felt I
healthcare
had an
system.
obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top
Two-tier is
people,
good.
and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about
Well,
the bad
it
ones. We
means
had
that
some
people
real bad ones
who
too, and so do they. They have
can't
really bad
afford
ones. The
healthcare
difference
take
is they
the
don't get
public
rid of them. But let me
healthcare.
just
Stole my
explain.
report.
I had a choice to make. Do I
Oh,
save
you're
it
gonna use
and
yours.
make it as good as it can
And
be?
people who can't
or do
afford
I let it
healthcare
rot?
can pay for it.
And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for
Are they
people.
clean on the inside?
And what we will do is we're looking at different
Yeah,
plans.
they-
If
are
we
they
can
scuffing
come
them?
up
You
with a
didn't say
plan that's
meat.
going to cost our
their
people,
parts.
our
Well, all the same.
population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it
Who
as
wants
good
to
as
see
it
us
can be
eat
run.
spicy
So
food
just a
together?
yes or no, you still do
How
not
about
But he
have a
kept
plan.
saying he had a
I have
plan. Like what?
concepts of a
Wait,
plan.
he's still working on the
I'm
plan.
not president
He's
right
been
now.
saying for
But
years
if
that he's gonna
we
replace
come
it.
up with
It's
something,
gonna be
I would
beautiful.
only change
It's
it
gonna
if we
be
come
so
up with
good.
something
Okay, but the
that's
years that
better
he
and less
was in
expensive.
office
and there
were
are
good.
concepts and options
but
we have
he
to do
made
that,
promises
and
and
you'll
never
be
kept.
hearing about
Hey,
it in the not too
pro-Trumper,
distant future.
Vice
Pro-
President Harris, in 2017,
whatever.
you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do
Pro-
away with private
Who do you
insurance
agree
and
with?
create a government-run
Except
healthcare system.
I am
2
pro-Trumper
years later,
minus
you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option.
women should have
What is your
rights.
plan today?
Well, first
hate-
of all, I
I hate the
absolutely
Republicans
support, and over the
that are
last
against
4 years as vice president,
freedom of
private
choice in
health care
women's
options.
bodies. I
But
hate that.
what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear
Former
my position on fracking, and then this business about taking
Fracking is
everyone's
good.
guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. When I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being
John McCain?
You don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like?
I disagree with Affordable Care.
Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes,
and rich people,
and thankfully,
then Affordable Care just
as
means
I've been
more
vice
taxes
president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have
But I know,
allowed for the
like,
first
same
time
thing in
Medicare
Canada,
to
like, it's the
negotiate
same
drug
thing.
prices on behalf of
They want to
you,
pay
the
for all these
American
things.
people. Donald
Where
Trump
are they
said he
taking
was
it
going to
from?
allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did.
Inflation has gone up 40%.
Now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35
Has the
a
tax
month.
bracket
Since
changed
I've
at
been
all?
vice
No, it
president,
hasn't.
we have capped
So
the cost
all
of
it's coming
prescription
from is just
medication
more
for seniors
taxes
at
from the middle
$2,000 a
income,
year. And
pushing
when
us
I am
down
president,
to pay
we will
for
do that for all
votes
people, understanding
and nothing.
that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to
tax
strengthen the
brackets need to go
Affordable
up,
Care Act, not get rid of
and
it. Fastest
I
pull
support
up in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue
I
that's
support
important for a lot
paying
of
for things for people, but the tax
number
brackets
one,
need to go up
John
a
McCain
lot.
fought
Like
Obamacare
they need
for
to
10
double.
years.
In Canada,
But it wasn't only him.
15,000. 15,000 is the provincial
kept it going. And you know
minimum.
what?
It should double.
We could do
Like
much
if
better
you make less than
much less
like
money.
right now,
But
if
she
you make
won't
$15,000 or more,
private
you have to pay
insurance
taxes.
for people.
Who
Private
the frick
medical
makes
insurance.
$15,000? Like that's
another
nothing.
thing she
Like
doesn't
it needs to
understand.
double.
Paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money,
agree with
and
that,
they
though.
want to have private.
Anyone
She
who
wants
makes under
everybody to
frickin'
be on government
$40,000 should be
insurance
paying
where you
taxes.
wait
I agree with that.
6 months for an operation
Don't
that you
put
need to
Prime
be.
Minister-
They do
Trump,
that?
thank you.
I'll
We have
support
another
these.
issue that we'd like
I'll
to
support
get to
these
that's
payments.
important for a number of
There you go.
Americans, in
Sensible-
particular
sensible
younger voters,
policies.
and that's
They shouldn't
climate
be
change.
taking the money
President
from the
Trump,
middle
with
class
regard to
to
the
pay for the poor.
environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris,
I
you
think-
call
I
climate
think
change an
especially with
existential
the
threat.
cost of living
The
and
question
stuff,
to you both tonight is what would you do to fight
They raise the
climate
minimum
change?
tax
And Vice
rates
President
or
Harris,
the-
we'll start
the-
with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former
Exemptions?
president had said that
Then I'm all
climate
for
change is
I'm
a
all for what
hoax.
she's saying.
And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who
Which
has
is money back into the
experienced
economy,
these
which is
extreme
money back
weather
into the
occurrences,
office,
who
money
now
back
is
into-
either being
course,
denied home
yes.
insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go.
No quiero
We
Trump.
know that we can
What
actually
is Trump?
deal with
Trump
this
is
issue. The
the
young
next
people of
president.
America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the
that's what
last 4
nobody
years,
said, but
we have
that's
invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels.
Pollution?
We have created over 800,000 new
You know how you solve
manufacturing
pollution?
jobs
Nuclear
while I
power.
have been vice president. We have
You know how you solve
invested
global
in
warming?
clean
Nuclear
energy
power.
to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain,
Nuclear
who
power
also
creates
know
about, like,
that part of
1,000
building a
square
clean
feet of
energy
waste
economy
a year
includes investing
per power plant
in American
that can be
made
buried
products,
or sent to
American automobiles. It
economic
includes
surgeons. Yes,
growing
nuclear power
what we
plants
can
do
do
cost
around
hundreds of
American
billions of dollars to build.
manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them
It's a
like
long-term
happened
investment.
under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That's
That
why
didn't happen
places
under
like
Donald
British
Trump. Let me
Columbia
just
and
tell you, they
Canada,
lost
with our
10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month.
hydropower
It's going,
is
they're
a
all
good
leaving.
solution, better solution.
They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China
Ford
is
already builds half the cars in
unbelievable.
Mexico,
But we're
by
not
the
going to
way.
let that. We'll
Trump.
put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any
I bought
auto
a
worker,
Ford,
whether it's in
and it was built in
Detroit or
Mexico.
South Carolina or any other
The
place.
last Ford I bought, it
What
was
they've done to business and
2024
manufacturing
Ford
in this
Bronco, the
country
last
is
vehicle I bought.
horrible.
I sold it
We
already.
have nothing because
It was
they
built in
refuse.
Mexico.
You know,
It's
Biden doesn't go
assembled in
after
Assembled
people
in
because
Mexico.
supposedly China
Probably
paid him
China.
millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries.
Mexico is
And then
not
you
the
wonder,
enemy,
why
man.
is he
Mexico
so
is a great
loyal to
country.
this
I think-
one, that one, Ukraine,
I think Canada and
China?
Mexico-
Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor
told me you
of
should nuke them.
Moscow's wife?
You know.
Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our
talking too much?
country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic
saying
night,
is-
this
yeah,
ABC
we
News
talked about-
presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Sorry, Abigail.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
But
This is a cotton.
yeah, I don't know. It's I agree with the tax break things. I want to pay less taxes. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Taxes suck. I understand the purpose of them. But yeah, I think everybody wants to pay less. Everybody wants to have more money to spend on their own things, I think. That's what everybody wants.
Been a fun chat or what? Shit, was I too stupid?
No, I think you're doing good. I think and so far. Oh, look at the poll. Look at the poll.
Camel.
33 votes. So you know that's a good what do you call it? Poll. Una cosa ya se entendí, si había
Again, 0 subscriber. But again, 0 requests on this stream.
Está gonna throw ese. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
But some people said, are we on?
we're live.
Oh, are we?
Yeah. What?
They seem like nice people.
They are great people. They're my followers, man.
Oh look.
But yeah, if you guys like this English content, I'll definitely have done over more. I think we're already planning some live streams and stuff. So we'll definitely be doing more of this. Maybe not political as much, or maybe we will. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I get a little fired up on the politics. So.
Yeah, but you've been doing good. I think you haven't said anything cancel.
Nothing cancel culture worthy.
No, nothing the woke mode will get you. Oh, the mold stuffed up there. But yeah, no, it's kind of boring debate. I don't lie. I guess when they mute the mics, it's not as fun because they can. But she's been interrupting a lot. Even Trump was like, "Does it sound familiar?"
You have a lot of Espanol friends that didn't want to watch the English stuff here. Huh?
Yeah, I think they will like it. I think we can have some videos, some live streams. We can.
I'll try to speak Spanish. I'll be como está cuyo? No habla español. I got that.
You got it. Native speaker, Mr. Don. What are the tweeters saying? The commercials with that one.
Done the Kinestros numbers. What does that mean? What does this message say? What are these? Both of these. I mean,
It's a Don.
Que diga nuestros nombres. He wants you to say their names.
Hey, Letty. Letty is cleared though. Well done. Yes, I appreciate it.
The fact is, the president is racist.
Kamala Harris is a fat bitch.
I'm speaking.
What the fuck?
And I'm a woman.
What the fuck? It's pretty much what the vote was. Yeah.
Speaking.
Woman speaking.
I am speaking.
What the fuck?
Kamala.
She's just dreaming.
Kamala. The moderators have decided that the mics will be muted like in the last debate, so no one can interrupt you. Isn't that great? The border has been a complete mess under her. The number of people entering this country has been bigger than maybe any time in history. People are struggling to afford food, and she wants to give more free stuff.
That's actually really funny.
Become a member at freedomtunes.com for exclusive.
That's actually really funny. Oh shit, we missed it.
Businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world.
I appreciate that.
I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do.
I agree with that.
I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things.
But she's been vice president.
Why hasn't she done it?
Exactly.
She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump,
you guys like my takes or no?
That is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And just like that,
and welcome back.
The debate is over. What do you thought about the debate? What do you? What was the highlights for you?
They talked a whole lot of nothing.
They did talk a lot of nothing.
Their hot button topic was abortion. That was it.
Abortion, Israel, and economy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the economy is out of both of their hands.
Yeah. So would you, after this debate, would you still, hypothetically, if you were American and lived in America, would you go for Trump?
Probably.
Undecided voter. Undecided voter.
I would probably lean that way, but
So you said you were single issue.
it's tough. Yeah, no, I really don't like how the Republicans are so obsessed with the anti-choice. And I consider myself somewhat of a feminist.
Talking of blue.
Women.
Feminism in this channel is a bit of a controversial topic.
Okay, well, I think women are equal to men.
No, because it's controversial because in the reality show we're watching, they're using those flags a lot, like the LGBT flag, the feminism flag.
Well, I don't like those, but
I know, but it's
well, not that I don't like them, but like
no, but it's like they use them very to their.
To
whatever they need for it.
I think religion needs to escape politics.
Church and state.
Separate church and state.
No.
Alex is muy inteligente don también. What does that mean?
You're first smart.
Oh, thank you.
I think she's smart. I'm not that smart.
Letty has been very nice. Jennifer leaves the chat too. She seemed nice too.
Well, we got higher listening to Trump. Yeah, about
Six Flags amusement park.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but so debate was okay, I guess. I mean, nothing out of the expected. Definitely, Kamala wanted the mics off on. I guess she wanted hot mics.
It was good. It was a good debate. She did better than I thought. She did better than I thought.
A lot.
She talked better than I thought, and she had better points than I thought. And it probably will convince some people to swing back that way. It's just a sad state of politics that we have.
So you're a Democrat now. Look at that. Don has started to a Democrat tonight.
It's just a sad state of politics that we have, where people are so divided. And I think that the debate that Kamala did a very good job of kind of bringing people a bit together. So, I think she did a better job than Trump in this, in my opinion. But
yeah, I mean, she did good. She did She spoke her mind. She spoke well, I think. And
how long have I known each other?
I think Trump did good too. Like Trump did answer some things pretty decent. Like he did refuted some stuff.
How long have we known each other? 2016, probably.
So almost 10 years.
Yeah, 8 years.
It's a decade.
Yeah.
How sad is that?
I'm old. I'm 34.
Yeah.
I know I look pretty and young, but
So your mom telling you. I'm just pulling your leg. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream and the debate, and my friend Don. We'll definitely be doing more live streams coming forward, I think. Probably, yeah. Most likely. So keep an eye out for that. And we're gonna... Vamos a pasar la gala más al rato, obviamente. Él no va a estar aquí. He's not gonna be here for watch the reality show later. But yeah, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think about the debate. You think Trump won? You think Kamala won? The chat, the poll I made you guys. Kamala has... Oh, they're pretty tight now. With 16% says neither. Nobody won.
As the Trumper, I think Kamala won this one.
Maybe we'll see. Anyway, everybody, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. Have yourself a good night. Don, you wanna say anything before we log off?
Have a good night. Follow me so I can do live streams of walking around Vancouver. That's it. That's all I got.
Follow him on YouTube. I left you guys the link there. Maybe we can put it on his Instagram, but from there you can find him. Okay. All right. Say bye.
See you later.
See you later. I'll leave it with Leo to say goodbye.
Si les gustó el video, por favor dejen su like. Y si quieren más contenido, denle click en los videos que aparecen en pantalla.
Are we done live now?